And we are live. Heck yeah. Oh, let me change the banner across the bottom. And now is the time that my neighbors choose to walk across the ceiling.
Of course.
Of course.
We're moving the cinder blocks again, like last week.
Well, just like last week, yes. Moving all of the cinder blocks. Anyway, so how have y'all been?
Surviving.
Good. Yeah. Busy.
I get you.
I think that is all people can plan for. I'm getting ready to head back to Columbus on Tuesday, so life's a little nuts there.
Oh, I get you. Well, safe travels whenever you do start heading out that way. Yep. I'm actually going to Columbus in the middle of next week to meet up with my mom because she's flying up and visiting. So that'll be exciting.
Where's your family from?
We're all over. Yeah, we're just all over the place. But anyway, so getting into the actual live stream proper. Again, this doesn't have like an actual outline or anything. We're just going to be treating it as just a chat. But today we wanted to get to a topic that we did not get to last time, 2 weeks ago. And the topic is turning your Kickstarter backers into hardcore fans. I'm joined again today by Ben and Angela and Jessica. Jessica made it. I'm glad to see you here, Jessica. Yeah, I posted the link to the chat in the Discord, so there should be some fans of mine popping in later on in the stream. Yeah. Anyway, if you missed any details about like our previous Kickstarter campaigns or anything else, you can check out the live stream. Oh no, something happened to Ben. Ben, what happened? Oh dear. But anyway, there was a live stream 2 weeks ago and it's on my YouTube channel, link in the doobly-doo or in the sidebar. However YouTube works now. But anyway, so while Ben's not here, let's just say
let's talk about
some delicious things about him. Oh, there he is.
Oh, you're back. You just didn't want to be in the middle.
That's the exact joke I was going to make when I got back.
You're not meant to be in the middle. You must be on the edges.
My parents we had a problem with the microwave and had to get a new one. And the new microwave is sitting in a place that's close to the router. So whenever someone uses the microwave, it causes our internet to stop working. So guess who decided to do a microwave right when the call was starting? Yeah, they have been thoroughly scolded.
That says a lot about technology. That's such a 1990s issue, and that still plagues us to this day. Anyway, yeah.
This is a professional stream, guys.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So anyway, we wanted to get to this topic a couple weeks ago. We just didn't get to it this time around, that time around, but we're getting into it this time.
Hopefully.
Talking about turning Kickstarter backers into fans. So real quick question for you both is, how long ago was your first Kickstarter campaign? Do you remember?
Mine would have been October to November 2017, I want to say.
Okay, so 2017. So that's 3 years ago for you. Angela, do you remember?
Fall 2014.
Okay, so you've been doing the Kickstarter game for longer than either of us. Or wait, hold on. I'm trying to remember when my first Kickstarter was. The first one that I ran under my name was the one for Seeing Him. And that was either 2013 or 2014. I don't remember which. So probably around the same time, actually. Yeah, because I forgot how old Seeing Him was. I sometimes forget that Seeing Him is a comic that I did. Yeah. But anyway, well, reason I wanted to ask was, well, for you, Angela, since it's that far back, did you do anything like a Patreon campaign after your Kickstarter wrapped up?
No. So part of the problem is mine have been mostly for an anthology that I run. So it's not like a personal project. I'm representing like 20 different people.
Gotcha.
And I didn't do Patreon until a few years after my first Kickstarter, so there was no connection there either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've done a Kickstarter since I got a Patreon.
Wow.
So there you go.
that is a unique perspective, and I'd like to talk to you a bit more about that as we go on. Ben, how about you?
I'm trying to remember when I started my Patreon. It was right around the same time that my first Kickstarter was wrapping up. But so my philosophy with Patreon is you have to be producing something regularly in order for Patreon to really work for you. That's kind of how it was designed to be done. So the main reason I started up a Patreon was that's when I started cosplaying. That's when I started my webcomic.
Gotcha.
So that was a big factor in getting that started, but it was right around the same time. I'm actually bringing up my numbers right now on that to see if I actually have overlap besides family in my Kickstarters and Patreon. But yeah, I think if I'm remembering correctly, unrelated. Yes, I created a Patreon campaign around the same time that I finished up my first Kickstarter.
Gotcha. Yeah, same for me. Right, and this was part of the strategy making Seeing Him at the time, because Seeing Him was one of the few webcomics I was doing at the time besides Validation. Validation, CB and I already figured out a game plan for how we were going to keep that going, so we weren't too worried about the financials of that. But the financials of Seeing Him, I was worried about because the Kickstarter was successful, but the asking goal that we had set was still pretty low. And we wanted to do this series for multiple chapters. And the Kickstarter only really funded like half of chapter 1. So we were like, okay, so we'll have this going until we run out of funding for the pages. Then we'll launch a Patreon campaign. And this was back in 2014 when Patreon was still relatively new-ish. It worked out okay. But I did notice that after Seeing Him wrapped up and I changed my Patreon page from just supporting Seeing Him to supporting all of my other comics, patronage and funding went up, which was interesting to me. Obviously, Patreon is not the only way to continue funding your stuff after a Kickstarter campaign wraps up. It really just depends on the kinds of Kickstarter campaigns that you are running and how you want to engage with your audience afterwards. I find anyway. How about you two? Have you noticed anything similar to that?
Yeah, honestly, I've had a really hard time with ongoing monetization. I'm very consistent with my Patreon, and I just haven't figured out how to market the Patreon. So I'm doing a lot of the work for not as much pay as would be ideal. I love having the Patreon. Like, the main thing with me is that keeps me working regularly. It's anytime I'm worried about schedule, I'm like, my patrons need me, and kind of am able to force myself into compliance.
Yeah.
So that really helps me. But it is something I've wondered about, is like, how do you promote something like that in an effective way? Now, I did, and getting back to Kickstarter a little bit, my last Kickstarter got me one additional patron.
Okay.
So first off, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude. But it's one of those things that I haven't really figured out. The video, I haven't got really mastered taking advantage of Kickstarter followers and fans, because I don't know, it's easy to get people to do a one-time thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that more of an ongoing relationship. And I know, Kelsey, you've been pretty successful with that. So part of why I'm excited about this video is I'm the person with the dumb questions now.
Okay, so all right, let's turn this format around. If you've got dumb questions for me, ask away. I will answer to the best of my ability.
Well, I think a lot of it ends up being tying into, I don't know, getting ongoing interest. Like, you have a very successful mailing list, which I'm assuming when you did the reward surveys, did you actually ask people if they wanted to be on the mailing list? Because I figured out to do that and it worked.
So what I did was I just posted Kickstarter updates, and the Kickstarter updates are usually like, all right, all the rewards are all wrapped up. What's next? And that's when I usually plug. So I have an email newsletter, which is free for you to sign up. It only posts once a week. Here's a link to sign up for it. I also have a Patreon page if you would like to continue supporting me on a monthly basis, not just a one-time thing. Right. I also throw in that if a Kickstarter backer becomes a Patreon patron and they back a later Kickstarter, they get an extra bonus reward in their Kickstarter package. That's how I do it, is like, oh, hey, you're double dipping, essentially. So you're not only supporting me on a monthly basis, but you're also supporting me on this Kickstarter campaign to get first dibs on the thing that I am making that's new. So you're going to get an extra reward in your package. It's usually like a mini print exclusive, but I have done exclusive mini comics and stickers before. But it depends on the project too. But that's how I do it. That's how I like to do it is, oh, you're a Kickstarter backer? Well, I also have a Patreon. If you're on Patreon and you support a future Kickstarter, you get extra rewards.
Oh, we lost
You're
Ben.
muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Do you tell them that before the Kickstarter concludes? Like, join my Patreon now and you can actually get these extra benefits?
I have not done that yet. Mostly because I hadn't thought to do that, I'll admit. But the other thing is, since now that I'm thinking about this, I don't want there to be like a surge of patronage on Patreon until the Kickstarter campaign wraps up and then see everybody just drop all of their pledges all at once. Because that's an outcome that I can see happening. Yeah. Oh, Jessica left a comment. Kelsey, I really like your newsletter. There's a good bit of content, but it's spread out on topics and space that it's all interesting. Like I said before, I could do an entire video just on how to do email newsletters. So I think email newsletters are a good chunk of why Kickstarter campaigns and support beyond Kickstarter is working as effectively as it is.
How often do you send a newsletter?
I only send out a newsletter once a week, and I send it out on Fridays. I've found that Fridays, for me, are the best days to send it out. There's actually been some studies on this, and there are people who say the best time to send out an email newsletter is on either end of the weekday spectrum. You either send it out on a Monday or a Friday, because nobody really checks their emails on the weekends.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the week, everybody is busy doing work. So
Right.
like the best times to send out a email newsletter would be Monday, Tuesday, or Friday, based on some of the research that's been done. And by some of the research, I mean MailerLite did an article about this once.
Right.
So, yeah.
Slightly separate question, just getting back to Kickstarter, but I just thought of this because it's kind of related. When you have new projects, do you do a Kickstarter update on your old Kickstarters?
I do.
I do too.
Yes. And it can be a little bit of a pain because of all of the Kickstarters that I have under my belt now.
Yeah.
Going into all of those campaigns and posting a new Kickstarter update being like, hey, by the way, I have a new Kickstarter campaign. Here's the link for it.
So you do it for every single Kickstarter you've done?
Every single Kickstarter I have done. And I have done over 10. I even post on the one unsuccessful campaign that I had, because there were some people who pledged to that campaign who did not pledge on the relaunch of it. So I wanted to keep them in the loop as much as possible. That's how I treat it anyway.
And you just post the same message to each one?
Oh, do you just copy paste?
That's what I do. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Do you need to do different ones?
I change it up a little bit depending on which campaign that I am posting to. Like if I'm posting to the campaign that I did for the Case of the Wendigo, the wording that I use for that is different from the wording that I would use for like a sketchbook Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
I only have like one type of Kickstarter campaign. I mean, I have the one oddball that I did myself, but
Yeah.
most of mine are the same group of people. It just gets bigger.
Yeah, but at least for yours, it's easy because it's like, oh yes, this is part of an anthology series. So
Hey,
there's
it's
not
time
much
for the next one.
time for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I changed mine up because every campaign is a little bit different. So like, I had the entire campaign funding for buttons, and then after that, I was like, okay, back to funding for books, and then after that, I was like, okay, time to fund a sketchbook, which is totally different from comics. And at the time, I didn't even know if it would succeed or not because I was like, who is going to buy a book with just sketches in it? And it turns out a lot of people. So, yay. Thank you, peeps.
Yeah. Honestly, it seems like a pretty good time to be releasing stuff like that because that's the stuff that usually sells at cons. And I bet there are a lot of people who are like, where can I buy stuff that I'd normally get at cons? I'm seeing that everywhere. Although a lot of cons are trying to launch right now, like get back to in person, and it's like, I feel you, but wait.
Yeah, I would rather wait until next year. To the credit of Rathacon, I love the name of that convention.
Yep.
To the credit of Rathacon, they're a little convention based in Athens, Ohio. They do interesting stuff year after year. This year, because they're playing it safe, as they should, they decided to do a fundraiser called Con in a Box. And it's almost like a loot crate, but it's got convention goodies inside of it.
Wow.
Which is really cool. I'm going to be donating my run of Johnson and Sir and a few other books in for Con in a Box, which incidentally, another way that you can engage people beyond Kickstarter campaigns is to just donate your stuff to causes like Con in a Box, or if you're going to a comic convention and they're like, hey, we're looking for material for a fundraising auction, you can donate stuff that way. It's a good way to get new readers in.
You know, it occurs to me we ought to do a video at some point about good practices for cons to do for artists. Like, I think that actually would be a really interesting stream.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, and also Rathacon's really good about engaging with their artists.
I like Rathacon. I've only been able to do them once so far, just because they had last year they overlapped with Space, which I was already committed to go to.
Yeah.
But I was really bummed when I heard that because it's one of those small cons that gets a lot of love from the tablers because they had a really good administrator running the whole thing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name. I'm terrible with names. Is it Alicia? No.
Alicia.
Alicia. Okay. I was close.
Yes.
But and at the time, I think she was the assistant. Like, she wasn't even the person in charge, but she was responding to emails within a day with any questions you had. Was really it was checking in with us at the tables, making sure everything was good. Awesome. Like, that was one of those things where the administrator was so good that I was like, I actually didn't end up making my money at the con this year, but I'd still come back. Like,
heck yeah.
It was one of those.
Yeah. Well, at the time, it was not that far for me to like go down there and back. It was maybe a 2-hour drive away from my house to like go there, set up my stuff, sell, leave.
Right.
Nice.
They did used to have it across 2 days, but now they have it just a 1-day affair, which I like that it's a 1-day affair because from the organizer side of things, you're no longer dealing with 3 days of you're dealing with 1 day of as one organizer put it. Because I've spoken with organizers, that's how one of them put it, and I was like, that is accurate and true. But yeah, conventions are another way to engage with fans and Kickstarter backers after a Kickstarter campaign wraps up. something that I came across once that I find to be pretty true is that you don't necessarily need a big following to launch a Kickstarter campaign. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like there are some people that may wonder, oh, but I need to get like so many thousands of people to follow me before I even launch a campaign to get this book to print. But how do I get readers to look at this thing if it's not in print? First, webcomics. Second, you don't necessarily need that. Like when I launched my first campaign, it was for Seeing Him. It was a new story. Nobody had ever heard of the concept. We didn't even put any pages up online for people to read yet. We were just like, hey, we want to make this story a reality. We need this much to make this many pages happen. Can you help us out? That was the Kickstarter in a nutshell. We actually made our goal because people really liked the pitch and they were like, yeah, we want to see this happen. So for anybody out there who's like wondering if they need like thousands of followers in order to launch a Kickstarter campaign, no.
I had no followers when I started my first Kickstarter. I was fresh out of CCS, and this was actually my thesis, and I'd been finishing up. And one of the things that really surprised me was how many people found my Kickstarter because of Kickstarter. Their internal search and their setting up or matchmaking mechanism is actually really good.
Yeah.
It's the best thing about it. It's honestly, if there's any one thing that I can definitively say Kickstarter does way better than Patreon, it's that. Because Patreon's terrible about searching within Patreon. It basically doesn't work.
I need you both to hold me accountable to make sure that I'm not going to rant about Patreon for a good half of this stream.
It'd be easy to do. But and I do like Patreon, but like this is one place where they really need to adjust their settings. But with Kickstarter, like I found that a number of people, actually some people around the world, I got some hits in Latin America. I got a hit in England.
I love seeing how far away my books get to go.
This last, actually, one thing that was kind of funny, this last Kickstarter I did, everything was within the United States.
I think his shipping
also was kind of nice. But it was it was funny because I get a lot of people through Kickstarter on that. I get a lot of people through Facebook for some reason, which is weird because I don't use Facebook. I have an account, but I basically don't use it.
I'm
it's weird that you've gotten Facebook to work for you because, like, in my experience, I never got a lot of Kickstarter conversions from Facebook. Like, not a lot of people went from Facebook to Kickstarter whenever I launched a campaign. It was almost always email newsletters for me. That or other social media platforms.
I think for me, Facebook brings in my family and friends. Like, that's how they find out about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And also that provides links that my parents can share with their friends who have money.
That's true.
And because my dad has started using Twitter now that he's retired, which is kind of fantastic watching how he uses Twitter. But
I love seeing old men use Twitter because, like, there was one old man who used Twitter who was like an army vet, and he was like, back in my day, I got medals for punching Nazis, and I'm just like, oh, come on, bless you, sir.
No. It's funny because my dad was a doctor for the VA hospital. So he worked for the government and spent his entire career being like, it's really bad form to share your political positions when you're this type of government employee. Like, it's something you kind of have to you generally keep quiet. Now that he's retired, he's like, yes. It's a lot of fun following his Twitter. For the most part, the older generation, their very first social media was Facebook, as soon as Facebook stopped being college exclusive. And a lot of them, that's the only one they use. I mean, I'd say that I'm not crazy about that, but I'm not crazy about social media in general. So,
there's, to their credit, Extra Credits on YouTube has been doing videos called Extra Politics, and they did one recently talking about how social media has basically gamified politics and some proposals for addressing that, which is interesting. Highly recommend that you give that a watch. I'm not going to go too far into it because we're supposed to be talking about Kickstarters and beyond.
Not trying to get too much into politics, but
we're not going to try to we're not going to try to do that. No, if we were going to talk about politics and comics, that can be its own entire live stream.
But
whole other discussion.
But getting back to Kickstarter and kind of tying this in, the argument that you shouldn't do a Kickstarter until you already have a following. If you have a social media account, which a lot of people, especially younger people nowadays, have, you have a following. They just haven't given you money yet. That's something you can leverage. And very often, even if people don't have money, you can say, hey, can you spread the word about this campaign? Really trying to make this happen.
Oh, yeah. And you could do the thing that you mentioned in the last live stream, directly messaging people individually, being like, hey, I have a Kickstarter campaign. Yeah. Could you help out?
Yeah.
You could arguably do the same for anything that you're doing after Kickstarter, whether you do Patreon or Ko-fi. The website says that they want to be pronounced Ko-fi, but the entire premise of it is that you're buying an artist a coffee.
Coffee. Yeah.
So I'm pronouncing it coffee.
they that's one of the problems I have with Ko-fi is just that they completely botch their branding so badly.
A little.
No one knows how to pronounce it. It's kind of like, so there's a streamer, there's a comedian on YouTube I've watched in the past who refers to his Patreon. And I'm like, no, say it right. Say it right. You know.
Yeah.
It like irritates my lizard brain every time.
That's probably why he does it, to irritate your lizard brain.
And
that's what comedians do.
You know, he would, but I don't think that's what he's doing. But yeah. It's but yeah, branding's important, people.
Yeah.
But yeah, with I had a point and I lost it. Kickstarter.
Yes.
There's a really loud crow in somebody's.
That would be me.
Yep.
Blame Abe. He's fed all the crows peanuts, and now they sit outside and tell us to bring them more peanuts.
They're my pets. They're sitting out there. See, you think they're there for the peanuts, but what do the crows know that you don't?
A lot of things.
So many things.
But yeah, I am still trying to figure out a lot of stuff with getting followers to back their stuff. I think I mentioned this last week. I do have an email newsletter that for some reason I've had a hard time monetizing. And when I say that, I mean specifically getting email backers to back Kickstarters and things like that. Not I'm charging you for your email, because that would be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which actually, in that vein, because there are people who are like, oh, yes, you can use your email newsletter to sell stuff through your online store. But I do have an online store. I have it on Store Envy. I tried running it on my own site, but it was just a pain in the butt to run. So I just went back to Store Envy. Store Envy is so much easier to work with. But yeah, I do have an online store. It's just sales on that are sparse.
Yeah.
I have the same problem. I do run it through my website, which may be a mistake.
Well, you know, the best place I found for random people finding my stuff is Etsy. The problem is they charge for you to post an item.
They do.
Whereas Store Envy, it's just free. And Etsy's been getting weird.
Is it a one-time fee?
No, it lasts like 3 months or 6 months or something, and then you have to renew it. I mean, it's like
that's a pain.
35 cents, 50 cents. It's very low, but
Yeah, but it's still like
when it used to be per item, and now I think it's per post. So I could have 10 items for the same cost. I
Oh,
think.
oh, that's
Okay.
not as bad at all.
I
Yeah,
kind of stopped using it, so I don't really remember.
so I had to. I use Weebly for my website, and a
I am
while
so
back,
sorry.
I actually for a lot of it I like Weebly.
Okay.
You use what's it called?
I use WordPress
WordPress. That's what I was looking
almost
for. 'Cause I remember you
exclusively.
talking about that.
All of my webcomic sites and my own portfolio site, all WordPress.
Yeah. Weebly honestly is I kind of view it as being in between WordPress and Squarespace, like kind of right in the middle there, where there's a lot of stuff that it'll do for you, but it also lets you mess with the code a little bit.
Gotcha.
But the one place where it got a little tricky was when I wanted to get a store involved. I had to pay for a monthly fee for an upgraded membership, which gave me a few other benefits, like
Okay.
my URL is actually bwhcomics.com, not bwhcomics.weebly.com. It's like stuff like that is nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to use the store at all, I had to pay for that. For the store to be any good, I'm going to have to pay an extra $15 a month.
Oh, geez.
And I really don't want to do that.
What's the difference?
A few things. It'll actually include shipping. It'll let you have more than 10 things posted.
Wow.
Yeah, right? It will... It really nickels and dimes you. You can do digital stuff. Like I have a separate store for digital because I realized that when someone bought something digitally, I looked at it and was like, it didn't send them anything, did it? I actually emailed the guy saying, did you get anything in the mail, like emailed to you when that happened? And he said, no, not yet. I'm like, here you go.
Oh my gosh.
Emailed it to him. And I was like, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a problem.
Actually, the funny thing is I already had a Gumroad account for some digital stuff that I'd done, but I'd abandoned it because I didn't like Gumroad. They fixed a lot about it. I actually think it runs a lot better now. So
Oh, good.
I kind of revamped that as my digital store.
I was thinking about going back to Gumroad, but at the same time, Coffee has a shop feature now. It's still in beta, but they have a shop feature now. So I've been giving them a test run with my ebook offerings because Store Envy, though great, doesn't really let you sell ebooks unless you pay a monthly fee.
I was wondering why I didn't do that. That's why. Yeah. Because I have a Store Envy and a Gumroad.
Yep.
That's why. Okay. Now I know why I made that decision.
Yeah, that would be why. But yeah, I used to have a Gumroad, and there were some sales that I made on Gumroad. It just wasn't super duper lucrative, so I ended up leaving. And also, like, I loved some aspects of Gumroad, but there were others that I was like, this could be fixed.
As I recall, their app is still pretty bad, which is unfortunate. But
they have an app?
They have an app. It's not really made for the creators. It's made for reading content you got off of it.
Gotcha.
And even there, not on. There we go.
Yeah, not on camera. Just...
I'm a wide guy. It's kind of hard being constrained. This is what it's like being a mime in a box.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. Like Gumroad was my very first store.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There was a period at CCS where everyone was like, just use Gumroad, and a bunch of us got it. And so my first thought when I was setting up the store on my own website is this is going to be so much better just because I can actually control this and do all the stuff. And after a little while, I'm like, I miss someone else controlling my things.
Yeah.
Although it's funny, I've never heard anyone name one of these stores that they just solidly liked. Like I've heard so many complaints about Etsy and Store Envy.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. All of them have problems. All of them are kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah. The only one that I've heard a lot of positive praise for and not a whole lot of negativity towards is Shopify. But Shopify, you have to like have a membership on there and pay for it every month. And I'm not all about that. I'm on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
Yes. Honestly, if you have to pay for store on a monthly basis, as long as it's a reasonable fee, I don't have a problem with that. But I would expect them to be helping me out a little bit because they make money if I make money.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's one of the places complaining about Patreon again. People can only find my Patreon if I link them to it. My Patreon's not even searchable because sometimes the content I post isn't appropriate for work. So I had to flag my whole site as not safe for work, which makes you not searchable.
Yeah, that's a drawback with using Patreon, is that if you're making not safe for work stuff or you tag your stuff as such, then you're removed from Patreon's search engine. Which
is such a mistake. You need that, like, if you have to sign up for Patreon anyway to get access to a lot of this stuff, you should be able to just flag, I want to be able to see not safe for work content. This is my age. And it would be easy enough to do. So a while back, you guys remember the big scandal with Tumblr, where they were changing what was allowed to be shown on Tumblr, and all these fan artists were losing their...
And I am 110% sure that is why Twitter is such even more of a wreck than what it was before, because everybody who was not safe for work on Tumblr did a max exodus to Twitter.
See, here's what I kind of wanted to see, because I thought about it and I realized, the basic UI for Patreon is not that different from the basic searching UI for Tumblr. If you just had that kind of stuff set up on a not safe for work account that people who just follow you are able to see, you could basically, like, this would be an opportunity for Patreon to get a bunch of people to switch over to their platform for that.
Yeah.
It never ended up happening. It might have been a bad idea, but I remember thinking that at the time. Was like, this actually might be an interesting option for people who are worried about not safe for work stuff, because that's what this technically is. They just need to fix the damn search feature.
Now, if interestingly, our editor for the anthology project that we're working on, JD, he and I have talked back and forth about Patreon search engine feature and talking about comparing it to Tumblr. I'm sure that if he were in the chat, he would have opinions and lots of thoughts on it, because he and I have talked about this before. I don't remember exactly what he said, but yeah, we've talked about it. Angela, you have been just listening.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm A, gently calling you out. But B, I wanted to ask, like, if there is anything that came to mind about this topic, about just more broadly, like getting Kickstarter backers into hardcore fans, that you had some thoughts on or questions about.
Well, my thought is I'm terrible at it. It's been easier with Awesome Possum than with my own work. So each successive Awesome Possum, I think, earned more money. Maybe the fourth one didn't earn as much as the third one, but the third one had a bigger goal because it was 400 pages. So I had to have a lot of money. But as I do Awesome Possum, I post on all the previous ones, and most of the people in the previous one come back for the next one. Yeah, I haven't figured out how to monetize my personal stuff as well as the Awesome Possum stuff, which just people love it. It's my biggest seller at conventions. It's the biggest, and I haven't figured out how to do. I think it's just such a cool topic.
Yeah,
right.
Otherwise, my stuff is just fiction.
Yeah, I could see it being a tricky thing to get support beyond Kickstarter for an anthology project, because it's not just you. I am particularly good at connecting outside of Kickstarter on stuff that is just stuff that I made.
Right.
I have not done an anthology project before. I have not run one, so I imagine that is an entirely separate challenge.
So one thing I'd actually been thinking about, so something like Awesome Possum is an ongoing thing, theoretically. Like, every time there is a new, and it periodically is a new anthology. It's not coming out on a regular schedule, but there have been multiple volumes. What was it, 4 volumes?
Yeah.
Have you considered making an Awesome Possum specific Patreon? and maybe trying to point people towards that, and like they get behind the scenes stuff or extra content, things like that?
It's crossed my mind, but I mean, I haven't worked on anything related to Awesome Possum since Volume 4, which was years ago. I don't remember when that was. I think it was 2018, and I haven't done anything since. I do have an Awesome Possum Instagram. It's Opossum. And I haven't posted there either. I don't know what to post. Like, if I'm not prepping for the next one. Once I'm working on a volume, then I have stuff to post. But in between,
So I think spitballing some ideas for things that you could post on Instagram concerning Awesome Possum. Artwork from past contributors. Like an Instagram reel or story with the past contributor. You could do something that AwesomeCon did. AwesomeCon did a thing where, because they didn't run this year, they were like, okay, for 1 month, we'll have a different artist take over the AwesomeCon account each week. They did this for Pride Month, where they were like, okay, because we couldn't have Pride Alley, we're going to have 4 artists take over the AwesomeCon Instagram page. To do that, they reached out to multiple artists, and they just picked the 4 that responded, because not everybody responded. I was one of the ones that responded, which is why I got highlighted on the AwesomeCon Instagram page. But they reached out and they were like, hey, we want to feature you for a week in this month on Instagram. Send us this many images with some descriptors for each image, some relevant hashtags. If you tagged anybody, tag them. But yeah, it was a good way to like repost content on an Instagram account that was not mine to people who were not on my follower list yet.
Right.
So
that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So that's something you could do for the Awesome Possum Instagram account.
Yeah.
Is just reach out to a past contributor and be like, hey, I want to feature you on the Awesome Possum Instagram account for like a week. Yeah. So that's an option. You could do giveaways if you have like a lot of excess stock and you need to rehome it. For that though, it helps to have like a timeline deadline, not necessarily we'll give this out when we hit this many followers.
Yeah.
Unless you're like really, really close to hitting that follower count.
Right.
Yeah. Learned that the hard way.
It only just occurred to me. A while back, I started packaging some of my old stock into mystery bags. Why was I not giving that out with the Kickstarter? Like that would have been done. Like that's easy. It's stuff that I've been trying to get rid of anyway.
Yeah, I have mystery bags on my store envy. I've sold one, but it's basically my favorite thing I've sold.
Yeah, I got rid of a lot of my first semester CCS comics.
Yeah, I'm getting rid of a lot of old stuff, and it's very specific. You'll be getting old stuff that has like bad sticker marks, but you're getting it all 50% off because I need to get it out of my apartment.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Actually, just fun anecdote. Do you remember the 4-page comic I did, Snakes, by any chance? You know it's the Bibliomancy's assignment. But I did a horror comic involving snakes, and the original version I did was a completely silent comic, and it didn't read well, so I added a poem. That book is now in my mystery bags, and cool.
I'll just let you two chat because this is like going over my head.
Well, it's funny because it involves. It kind of involved Kelsey too, because they and I were sharing a table at MatsuриCon, and someone bought the mystery bag and wanted me to sign the stuff inside. So after they bought it, we cracked it open. It had snakes in there, and I realized it had the draft, like the one copy I made that didn't have the poem.
Whoops.
But it's funny because I looked at that and I was like, okay, what you got is even crazier because only one of these was ever made.
Yeah.
And I actually sat down right there, grabbed a sheet of paper, and I wrote out the entire poem from memory. And we're just like, here you go.
From
Not only
memory.
is it signed, but you got this. You were there when I did this. This was at MatsuriCon.
Oh man. Okay.
Remember that?
I remember this vaguely, but I remember this. I also remember walking away from the table for like maybe 5 minutes. Sorry, neighbors. But I remember walking away from the table at MatsuriCon for maybe 5 minutes, and then I come back and you were like, I just made a $150 sale. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a really good day. By the way, this is why you should have special editions of your books.
Yeah.
Because not only
and
did
actually sell them.
Yeah. Like, so one of the things that is really hard not to do is sabotage yourself when stuff like that happens. Because every time someone's bought one of my special edition copies, which are $75, my first reaction has been, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, wait, I have a cheaper one.
I do have a cheaper one. Like, and I have to fight that so hard. But yeah, someone came up, bought that, a couple other things, and then left a tip because they did credit card, and I leave the tip option open because why not?
I always leave that open. I'm like, well, you can fill that out if you want. I'm not going to ask you to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will say, since because it was you, Ben, who actually helped set up the tip system on my Square, because I did not accept tips until like fairly recently. And I will say, since adding the tip feature on my Square online, not online, but like whenever I go sell at conventions and I use Square, income has shot up a good more than 20% with the tip feature added on there.
One other thing with Square, because this is something that you and I do differently. Kelsey, you also charge a little bit extra when someone uses Square for the processing fee, right?
I do. I charge an extra 25 cents.
I kind of view the tipping as offsetting that for me. Like, also, like I will very often just, even if they don't tip, I'm like, I'll eat the fee. You wouldn't have bought it if like I couldn't use a credit card system. So I'm fine with that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I used to do that, but it was just eating too much into my profits for me to be comfortable with it. So I just started adding 25 cents as a charge fee. And like 99.9% of the time, are you making notes?
Yes.
But like 99.9% of the time, people were totally fine with me putting a fee, like a 25-cent extra charge on there. You got to be upfront about it, though. You got to be like, hey, I need to add 25 cents on this charge because Square takes a little chunk. Is that okay? And I've rarely had anybody say in seriousness, no, that's not okay. Usually if they say it, it's like a what? Like a scandalous Victorian and you're doing it in a joking way.
Do you only
fix the vapors? Oh.
Do you only tell them, or do you have a sign up that says cards taken?
I tell them in person. Okay. Yeah. I have a little sign up that says I accept card, but whenever they're like, hey, is it okay if I pay with card? That's when I say I have to add a little fee on there. Is that okay? Yeah. And that's before I ring it up.
If someone actually said, no, that's not okay, like, and they meant it, would you just not charge the 25 cents and still take the thing? Or would you say, sorry?
For me personally, I mean, it would just depend on the situation. And like the rapport that the customer and I have built up to that point. Because if there's somebody who is just like, you know, they're just table hopping, I'm not going to be too fussed about it. Or I'm going to be like, sorry, dude, it either I got to charge you 25-cent fee because Square eats it, or you pay with cash. I do have a Venmo and a Cash App now, so there's those options too if you want to circumvent the fee. So that's an option that I now throw out there. I didn't used to have the option before. Now I have it. So that helps a lot. I've had a couple of people pay via PayPal actually at live events, so that helps too. What were you going to say, Angela?
Oh, does anyone ever actually see your sign that says you take cards?
Funnily enough, mostly no.
Yeah.
I don't I don't even do the sign because I always figure if someone wants to pay with card, all they have to do is ask. And like,
yeah,
do you think there are any vendors that have no way of taking cards at this point, even if they have to manually enter it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Like
I've sat next to people.
Yeah, I've come across some people. Most of them jewelers, interestingly enough.
Yeah. Weird.
Which is, kooky, because you would think that with jewelers, because a lot of their jewelry can ring on the more expensive side, that they would want to accept card more often, but they are often cash only.
Huh. All under the table.
Yeah, this jewelry just fell off the back of a truck. Hold on, I need to write that down.
Yeah, let me take a note.
That's your next cosplaying idea. A cosplayer looking for jewelry.
Just fell off the back of a truck.
Yep.
Cool. I'm rethinking how I organize cosplaying stuff, so I need all the script ideas I can get. Also, I'm not going to cons, which is making it really hard to keep up with ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm planning on actually doing a full book, and I'm actually trying to shop it to publishers. I'm thinking of when I hit 200 strips, so I'm actually trying to plan out the next 30 strips because that's what it's going to take to hit 200. So I'm trying to do a bunch of thumbnails and a bunch of writing to get that done.
Are you going to try and shop it out before you have them completed, or as soon as you have them written and thumbnailed, or when they're all finished being drawn, or when they're all finished being posted?
It's all going to depend on when I stop procrastinating.
Yeah,
that's half the battle.
Yeah, honestly, I can put together a dummy version of it pretty quick, and I have some publishers in mind that I want to shop it to, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, keep it posted.
Yeah, but that'll be awesome. It's probably going to be sometime next year because technically I'm about half a year away from 200 strips being posted.
Congratulations, my dude.
Yeah. That'll be big.
It will be big. Maybe I will.
How often do you post?
Once a week.
Right.
So it's been posting since 2017 every week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very close.
That is. Oh, I'm tired just saying it.
I know. I got to a point with Johnson and Sir right around like page 75 or so where I was like, I'm tired of looking at this. I really need to wrap this up on page 100. And that's exactly what I did.
Yep. So I'm thinking about doing a Kickstarter. I don't usually do them too late in the year, as we talked about last time, but I'm thinking about doing one for a print edition of Threadbare Memories. Cobb was the working title for 5 years. It's now called Threadbare Memories. Cobb is one of the two main characters. So I'm thinking about doing a Kickstarter for it in the next couple months when I start posting chapter 4. So then each post of chapter 4 would be, hey, check out the Kickstarter for the whole book.
Yep.
Yeah. It'll be my easiest ad campaign.
Yep. I mean, I did the same thing for Jamie Roberts, honestly. Because what I do with the Legend of Jamie Roberts is I post new pages once a week. Then when a chapter wraps up, there's like a 2-week hiatus period to A, build up buffer, B, give myself a little bit of a break if I'm not able to build up a buffer, because I believe in building in breaks on stuff because I don't like burnout. Up to this point, thankfully, I have not experienced burnout yet. Knock on wood.
Yeah, we'll find it all.
That's half the battle. But part of that is that I schedule in breaks, like a 2-week hiatus period between chapters of Jamie Roberts. And during that time, too, I plan out a Kickstarter campaign to get that previous chapter that I just wrapped up into print.
Yeah.
I thought about it.
Yeah, and then in the beginning posts of the subsequent chapter, I'll be like, hey, by the way, this is now available on Kickstarter. So that's an easy ad campaign to do too.
Yeah, one of the places where that ended up biting me with the second letters book, I kind of was planning to do the same thing. Like the last page of my first book actually said, it had a preview for the next one. The Letters of the Devil 2 coming in 2019, which was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that?
Because that was 2 years away, and I'm like, if this goes anything like the first book, that's doable. And I ended up.
It wasn't.
Then it wasn't. I finished in like January 2020 or something like that. Like that's when the final page was drawn. And I did the Kickstarter, and the end of the second book had, I don't know when the third book's coming out, but there will be a third book. That's what I said. It's like, I'm taking a break. I'm trying not to burn out, but don't worry, this is not the end of the story. And the thing that was annoying, because of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, aka the pandemic.
Yeah.
I ended up kind of having to I didn't get the break that I wanted because I kept having to think about getting this Kickstarter and this book fulfilled for months longer than I was hoping to. And it was always kind of hanging over my head. So now actually the funny thing is, now that it's all taken care of, the other day, my family watched the 1945 version of And Then There Were None, which, by the way, Angela, you're a fan of that story, right?
Yeah, is that the black and white one?
It is the black and white one.
Where the maid dies and they're like, oh, how will we eat breakfast? The maid died.
By the way, first off, we're gonna make jokes about it. It's actually a pretty good adaptation.
I really enjoyed it. It was very funny.
Light spoiler alert, they changed the ending.
Okay.
I think all of the movies have changed the ending.
Yes. Which is a shame because the book has the perfect ending. But still, it's about a 95% accurate adaptation. But the thing is, like, watching that stuff really gets my brain churning, especially when it comes to mysteries. And I left and started kind of like pacing and working on writing 3 different letters books. Like, I was working on scenes and characters from 3 different books at the same time. And I'm like, I think this book's probably going to happen at some point soon. The next one's got to properly start before too long.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Do either of you participate in National Novel Writing Month?
I'm planning on doing that this year.
Oh, hey, me too.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Great.
Yeah, we'll be writing buddies.
Yeah.
My November is going to be too nuts for me to do that, unfortunately. I've never done it before. I've never been writing fictional prose does not work well for me for some reason. It's the one place where my writing is not good.
Here's the thing.
Wow, that sounded conceited. I said that wrong. I'm not.
We understand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Open mouth.
Hold on, wait. We just got demonetized on Twitch. Anyway. But I suddenly have an OnlyFans account. Anyway.
We need to get back on top.
Okay.
Anyway, oh God, what were we talking about before we?
NaNoWriMo?
NaNoWriMo.
Yeah. There is a thing that you can do. You can be a nano rebel. Nano rebels are people who disobey the general rules of NaNoWriMo and do something different. So, like, the general rules of NaNoWriMo are, it's got to be a new story. You can't have worked on this before, and it's got to be 50,000 words in 1 month.
Yep.
See, when you said they changed the rules, it's like, forget novel writing. I'm going to make sandwiches.
For some nano people, and this is going to be me this year, it's honestly a good time to just write down comic scripts. Because I've done that before. I've also seen people use it as a time to work on like 3 different projects at once. And it just, at the end, working on all 3 of those projects have to total 50,000 or more words. I've also seen people be like, well, I'm going to work on this one project, but I've written a previous draft for it before, but this is going to be a rewrite. That was me back in 2018. I revisited a novel project that I had written up before, and I was like, I'm just going to start this completely new. And that's what I did. So you could use it as a time to work on comic scripts.
Get your 30 or whatever it is cost payments.
Yeah. I could also use it to actually put the book together for that. That would actually be an interesting thing to do during that. My main thinking is, I'm like, and I talked about this last time, I'm marrying 2 people in the middle of the month. So that's kind of going to take all my attention for the first half of November, is making sure that their marriage is legal and as good as I can make it during a pandemic.
Yeah.
That's kind of my priority, but I mean, I'm not going to be doing it 24/7. I might be able to figure out some of that.
Yeah, and you don't have to write every day, as long as you get to your word count by the end of the month. That's what matters.
I could do it like the way I typically do Inktober. Start doing it every day and then forget a few days and then do a bunch. Sadly, I'm not doing Inktober this year. What I really wanted to do is graphite wash, and it wasn't until a couple days into Inktober that I realized I left my graphite wash in Columbus.
Graphite wash?
Graphite wash, I'm becoming a big fan of. Basically, it's same principle as doing a wash, but instead of using ink, you're just using dry graphite powder, which you get like, it's actually a lubricant for bicycles and things like that. That's usually what you end up getting. I got interested in it because I found out that's a big part of how Stephen Gammell did the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books, which has the creepiest art. And I know he supplemented it with some other stuff, but when someone told me that that's what he did and I tried it, I'm like, yes, this was what he did, and I love it because it's creepy.
Is it mixed with water?
No.
It mixes with water, I think.
You could mix it with water, I guess. You can also just do it dry and then apply fixative.
And so it's carbon dust illustration. I learned about that in the natural science illustration program I took. But we did it on, what's that? Duralar. Do you know what that is?
No.
Nope.
Like instead of paper, it's like a plastic film, and you can get it clear, like an acetate, or semi-opaque, and then you can draw on one side with the carbon dust, and it's so intricate and it needs so much patience. And then on the other side, because it's semi-transparent, you can draw with a pen. So then you get both sides. It can make absolutely stunning artwork if you have the patience for it. I've only done 1 or 2 because it's.
I did have an idea last year where what I wanted to do was for Inktober do 31 illustrations in graphite wash, and I would use the official. I like to use the official Inktober prompts. I know a lot of people grab other stuff, but that's what I tend to go for. And the idea would be I'd get all of these, take the good ones, and then kind of do a Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark style, like short story written for every single one of them. Just keep it simple, 1 page, illustration to go with it. Release it as a book.
2018. Yeah, my book, Her Blood and Bone. I did the prompts for that year. And then after that, I wrote up a little flash fiction. It's just like a 1-paragraph bio for each of these. For the whole month, I drew women as animals, animals as women, something like that. Kind of women with animal heads, but their bodies were also kind of furry and stuff. So it's kind of a dark humor book. It's I'm very proud of it.
But I'll bring this up real quick to tie this back into the title of this live stream.
Yes.
It's not a bad thing that we're talking about challenges like Inktober and NaNoWriMo, because here's the thing, and this is something that I found out from a Skillshare class, not sponsored by Skillshare. I feel the need to state that. But I I did take a Skillshare class talking about like how to grow following on different social media platforms. And one of the things that you can do to grow social media following is do a challenge like Inktober, because what it does is it makes you post every day for a certain amount of days on a particular theme that you are working on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of half the battle of running any kind of social media platform, is posting on a consistent schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you use NaNoWriMo? Do you use NaNoWriMo to do that at all? Like, especially if you're doing prose?
NaNoWriMo for me is more of a personal challenge.
Yeah.
That's more time that I set aside as like almost like self-care time. Like NaNoWriMo is more of a self-care month for me than it is anything else. Inktober is the I am doing this for work month, because I am an artist by trade. That is what I do.
Yeah.
But NaNoWriMo is something that I do that is like, because writing is what I do for self-care, whether that's journaling, admittedly fan fiction, original stories, what have you. Like, writing is what I do to just get what's up here out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that it's not festering up here.
Yeah.
And NaNoWriMo is really a good time to like really set aside chunks of time every day for a month to do that. And by the end of the month, I'm like, I need to do this more often. And then I forget to.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, just real quick, because I was mentioning graphite wash, just here's an example of one of the illustrations I did.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice.
Like, that's the kind of thing that you get, like, it's
here.
pencil, but with less of the fine line built into it. There we go.
Ooh.
There we go. We can enlarge it just a little bit this way.
You also get the reflection of the ring light.
Yeah.
My mom just got this on Prime Day, and I'm like, can I borrow it? Because I'm about to do a live shoot, and you know, you don't want a live shoot to be too dark.
Mine was too bright.
It was a terrible backlighting situation. Yes. It's completely different.
I've turned 90 degrees, and now the window is on my left.
There you go. Yeah, the window is on my right, which is why it's almost like we're sandwiched in light.
Yes, we are.
Just one more, and this is vertical orientation.
Okay,
but
so I probably won't be able to like. Okay, there we go.
Yep. I was just mostly happy with that hand because I'm like, yep, that's a Stephen Gamel hand.
Yeah. It's also very Stephen King in theme.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because balloons.
Yes, because balloons are scary.
Balloons are scary. Balloons are very, very scary.
Mm.
Watch out for the balloons. Okay.
Balloons.
Balloons. I'm thinking we could probably go for another 20 minutes or so, because it's a little after 2 right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because trying to. I think the other big thing, getting back to the original topic of using Kickstarter just to kind of promote yourself, a lot of times you are making cool stuff as a side effect of doing the Kickstarter. So sharing that with the general public is usually a good trick also. Whenever I've made videos that are like, this is meant in large part to be part of a Kickstarter, it also goes up on YouTube because I want other.
Oh no, you did it again.
How about now?
There you go.
We're good.
Cool. Yeah. I was just saying that anything I put up also goes on YouTube because I want the more general public to be able to see it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep making mine private because they seem so silly, but I think I need to just make them public. Because it's like, here's my Patreon video.
Yeah, it's honestly Kickstarters are a good way to like pad out your social media feeds after the Kickstarter wraps up, because then you can post like, so we're making progress for the general public to see, and then the general public can be like, oh no,
I missed it
on a campaign. I need to sign up for their email newsletter to get notification of the next one.
By the way, Jessica, thank you. I do plan to make more of those. I just need the wash. As soon as I go back to Columbus, one of the first things I'm going to do is find where I put that bottle and just be like, paint.
Yep. Follow him on social media to see those sketches when they get made.
That's true. I'm BWH Comics on everything.
Yeah.
So smart.
Yeah, even Instagram. Honestly, Instagram is my new social media platform to be on right now,
Yeah.
but largely because it's largely because I get to choose who I follow. And if there's somebody who's posting somebody that I don't necessarily like, I can unfollow them and they don't have to know.
That's true. One other thing I'll throw out there, because I'm curious if anyone else has had any success with this. One of the more, so my personal favorite social media site is one of the ones that is kind of different from all the others. A lot of people say it's not a social media site, but Reddit. I really enjoy using Reddit, and I post my comic every week to a couple subreddits. The thing is, whenever I have a Kickstarter, one of the things I do during it is I post to multiple subreddits that promote Kickstarters to say, hey, I'm doing this. And I feel like I'm not doing that right. But it seems like something that should be useful for growing your audience.
I do not have a Reddit page, so I cannot say anything to this.
Okay.
I will say this is something that I came across that I find really, really true. It is pay attention to where you are paying attention.
Yeah.
And that is like, if you find yourself not really paying that much attention on Facebook, then just don't really use Facebook, because if you're not paying attention to it, not a lot of other people are paying attention to it. If you're not paying attention to like Tumblr, then a lot of people are not going to pay attention to Tumblr. So just maybe don't use that as much.
Well, that's actually part of where I get into trouble, because speaking honestly, I don't pay attention to a lot of this stuff. I don't pay attention to most of the email newsletters I get. I don't pay attention to social media on Instagram or Twitter particularly. I post there because I know other people who do. So I'm kind of in the opposite camp there. It's like, it may not be necessarily that this is what interests you. It's what interests your audience. But I'd love to figure out a way that does both.
Well, what if you were on those platforms, what would you pay attention to?
Actual comic content. That's what I always look at.
Non-rhetorical question that is very valid for planning what you are going to post.
Yeah. Like, one of the big things I did with while the Kickstarter for my last book was going. Actually, no, I did this beforehand. That might have been a missed opportunity.
What?
So, like I said, I'd originally said that the book would be released in 2019. And I felt really bad that I was going to be missing that deadline, which was stupid, but I did feel bad about it. Because, everyone, the only person who really cared about this deadline was me.
Yeah.
But just because it bothered me that much, what I decided to do was I had the prologue done, just completely ready to go. So I released that page by page on the webcomic site, because the first book was posted in its entirety as a webcomic, so you have no excuse not to buy the second book. But I did that starting in December, and when that would happen, I'd also set up an automatic post to go up on Twitter and Instagram that actually was formatted for seeing it panel by panel if you wanted to.
Oh, I've been doing that. It's a pain in the ass.
It is, but honestly, like, with some stuff, it's worth it. It's pretty easy for my other webcomic, Cost Pain, because every single panel is the same size and shape. I've just created an InDesign document where I swap out where I have everything set up. I just swap out the comic that it covers, and then export each one as a PNG, and bam, ready to go. But for this, like, I got some followers because every single day, or actually 3 days a week, I was posting these readable scripts. And if I'd done that with a Kickstarter attached to it, that would have been a really good idea. Now I feel dumb.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking of when I start Threadbare Memories Chapter 4, I'm going to start the Kickstarter for the whole book.
There
I
you
still
go.
have to draw the cover of Chapter 4, but
I'm going to throw this out there too. When our anthology starts like gearing up to go on the Kickstarter, I'm going to post like a couple of pages of my short story on my social media pages and being like, if you want to read the rest of this, keep an eye out for the Kickstarter coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's we're actually probably going to want to have a meeting at some point to discuss what can be posted and what can't. Because I don't think people should post their entire story, for example. But
no, absolutely not.
Or other people's stories. Like that's something I don't think anyone in this group would do, but it's probably worth having spelled out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, like, as a whole, I think there's some really interesting stuff we could do for cross promotion. And like, I really want to do interviews with every single creator and have them post on a regular schedule during the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
So for social media, I just wanted to comment that Facebook seemed to be the off one. That I don't need to pay attention to Facebook. I just need to throw stuff on there, and people who like Facebook find it.
Yeah.
Because they don't. I don't know. It's so weird to me how many people like Facebook and are on no other social media, and they're really, really into it. So I don't have to do any interaction. I just throw something up, and everything else I try to, like Twitter and Instagram, I try to once or twice a week go and comment, retweet, do something with someone else other than myself.
Yeah.
I should be doing that, and I'm not. But you're right. I do what a friend of mine referred to as the post and ghost.
Yeah.
And that really does not help you on those platforms. They're actually designed so that the more active you are, the more your stuff gets shared as well.
Yeah. I find it really depends on what you want to use the social media platform for. Like, Facebook is pretty good for posting and ghosting. But that was not what I wanted to do with social media, because when I go onto a platform, I want to see people interacting with my posts and comments. And I found that I got the most of those on Instagram, which was why I decided to not use Facebook as much anymore, because I was not very keen on just posting and ghosting, and it was not giving me the engagement that I wanted. I wanted to see more likes and I wanted to see more comments. And unfortunately, Facebook is one of those platforms that you have to pay money if you want to see more of that.
Yeah. Which by the way, this is probably worth bringing up. Every single time I've done one of those things, I've panicked and paid to have a campaign promoted on various social media platforms. Facebook, I think I've done the most on. And it hasn't helped me. Like, it really hasn't. You can spend an extremely small amount of money for it, but it's really not that effective.
I tried that with Store Envy too. I put they have like those monthly ad campaigns or sales or something that you can join, and I joined 1 month just to see if it would do anything, and I made one sale off of it. That's it.
Yeah, same with Store Envy. I tried participating in one of those marketplace-wide sale things that they do, and I listed a couple of things on there. Maybe it was just the selection that I picked, but nothing. Whole lot of nothing. So, like, paid campaigns on social media, I've not really found them to be effective.
Which is unfortunate, because it's one of those things that it does get more people looking at whatever you've posted. It just, people don't respond to ads the way they used to.
And I didn't even see them.
Yeah, the thing is, I actually do consider that a bad thing. I know a lot of people hate advertisement. I wouldn't be surprised. Angela, I bet you hate ads.
Yes, I don't even see them. My mind just goes, my mind is the ad blocker.
I have a web browser that specifically has an ad blocker built into it.
Yeah.
And I paid for YouTube Premium because I don't want ads.
So I almost paid for YouTube Premium this year because, okay, I'll just say it. I was getting a lot of political ads I didn't want to see.
Same. That was why I got YouTube Premium to begin with, because I was seeing a lot of political ads that were unskippable, and I didn't want to see them.
The reason I didn't get YouTube Premium, although I did think about it, was, well, first off, I don't use ad blockers because I do know of creators for whom that is their revenue. And I don't feel right because basically ads are annoying, but they're free for us.
Yeah.
Like it feels wrong to take money out of a creator's mouth just because of that. But again, that's a personal thing. I get a lot of people want to use ad blockers. I just personally don't. And I didn't want to get bullied into paying for premium, which is what it felt like was happening with those ads. So it's almost like I will watch these ads in defiance.
That's how I am with Hulu. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to pay more to not have to look at your stupid ads.
I'll tell you something funny. I'm on family accounts with Hulu and Netflix and all that. But my mom was like, I haven't been watching Hulu. I'm going to drop it. I'm like, well, I'd like to keep it up, so I'm going to go ahead and pay for it. But since I'm the one paying for it, I'm going to downgrade it to the ad version. And it lasted a week before Mom said I'm paying for it. We don't have to have ads. I hate ads so much.
You know, the one place ads really work for me, and I hate it, Instagram, because they look like posts. They're usually beautifully shot or filmed.
Yeah.
I cannot believe how many things I have bought from Instagram ads.
Yeah.
I have this wooden lap desk that I adore. Instagram ad. The tiny tree houses I mentioned last time, Instagram ad. It works so well for me. And I hate it.
It's because it's visual.
And beautiful visual, not like hokey, I'm an ad.
One of the things that I kind of miss, because this ended shortly after I got into the game, but Project Wonderful was a really, really cool ad system.
Yeah.
It was. I didn't make a whole ton off of it because my readership was always relatively small, but it was a viable way for especially webcomic artists to make a living off of what they post.
Yeah. And it wasn't even just that. Back, especially when I was in college, so this would have been the mid to late 2000s.
Yeah.
That was kind of the heyday of webcomics in a lot of ways. And a big part of that was people found webcomics through ads.
Yeah.
Project Wonderful allowed you to have a very inexpensive way of getting your banner ad on other webcomics and other sites that webcomic interested people might go to.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that was sad to me when Project Wonderful announced that they were shutting down was they basically said, in the modern era, everyone is staying, people aren't finding stuff through ads. They're finding stuff through social media entirely. And that means our business model no longer works. And they were right. It was interesting because I started thinking about how could I, now how do I monetize social media? But
and even then it's like, you can monetize social media, but it's only a matter of time before something else comes around the bend to replace it.
Yeah. Actually, the real fun was, I feel like a lot of people did this at the end of Project Wonderful. Like when they saw that it was going to be ending, they just cranked up their ad buy instead of taking money out of the account, because they charged when to take money out of the account. So if you just had a little bit in there, like a lot of us did, it was just better to reinvest it in advertising. So we all were basically like, let's give each other money and get some really good advertising going for like the last couple months. It was really cool. I think by the time it shut down, I had like 20 cents in there. I said, I think by the time it shut down, I had 20 cents in there.
Oh, well, I was that weirdo that because they had like a $5 minimum to withdraw it, and I only had like $1 and some odd change in there. I was like, okay, deposit $5, take out everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was that.
That actually makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I just used it to, kind of spread the love. Like that's what Project Wonderful was built for.
Yeah. Well, CB did that for me with because she did that with Validation, because Validation had Project Wonderful ads on there.
Right.
And that was just what she did. Was she was like, all right, one last round of ad buy. The other thing that I could see being a chip that led to Project Wonderful's downfall is the ubiquity of platforms like Patreon.
Well, Patreon definitely
Well, Patreon exists as kind of an alternative to, hey, if you want to see my stuff ad-free, this is the place to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that ads on the internet have become progressively more obnoxious.
They have.
Do you know the guy who invented the pop-up ad has apologized?
I don't doubt it.
Well, like, the thing is, when he developed the tech, he had no idea how annoying it would get.
Mm.
He's actually since apologized. He's like, I didn't mean to create this monster. I had no idea this was going to happen. Now I go to recipe sites that not only have a 50 pop-up ads anytime you're trying to find out how to make bread, but that start off with a story. It's like, when my mother was growing up in Tuscany.
Oh my God. That's the one thing that annoys me about recipe sites is that they open with this like thing that is not the recipe and it's just like a blurb about their life. And I'm just like, scroll.
Where
like,
is the recipe?
Do you know why they do that? Do you know why they do that?
Well, they do that to pad it out for word count purposes and also to optimize in the search engines.
Exactly. Like I learned this recently, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I can't blame them for it. I can blame Google. I'm fine with blaming Google. Yeah, like I guess a lot of this is to say, don't blame your creators when they shill like this, because we kind of have to. The system is built so that this is what we have to do.
I mean, yes, that's the systems that we're given, but I am of the camp of screw the system.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do my own thing. Because like this is very true. I've found it to be true, at least. Like social media platforms come and go. Like MySpace was popular, now it's not. Facebook was popular, now it's got a lot of controversy tied into its name. But the one thing that has been consistent, I have found, and a lot of other people have found this to be consistently true, is the email newsletter is not necessarily dying. Like there are people who don't pay attention to email newsletters after a point, but that's just more them shifting their attention towards something else. But the thing is, though, when people sign up for email newsletters, they want to put that attention onto that thing. That's them saying, hey, here's an open invite to come into my inbox on a set schedule. Don't violate my trust. And the only reason that they would unsubscribe is if you violated that trust somehow.
Counterpoint on this. Two things. One, I always wonder if people have automatically set up my newsletters to be blocked, because I honestly do not know if that's the case. I've wondered that before, just because I also always put a little note in there saying, subscription to this is completely voluntary. If you want out, completely mandatory. You must belong. No, completely voluntary. If you want out, just let me know. And I've never gotten a response. So I'm like, oh, they just blocked me instead. But the other thing is, I'm increasingly finding that people aren't paying attention to email the way they used to. To the point where I'm beginning to wonder if email itself might start to be on the way out in the next decade, at least.
People have been talking about email is on its way out for like a decade, and I have not really found this to be true.
Well, it's weird because here's the thing. All my emails go straight to my phone. I might not deal with them right away, but I see them very, very quickly. I know a lot of people who don't do that. Like you send them an email, it takes them a week to even see it because they just don't check emails. What I'm suspecting is the next big step for it is actually not social media, not email. I think Discord might end up being the next mailing list and things like that.
I can see that.
I know a lot of people where that's where they get their quick information.
Well, Discord is basically a chat room.
It is. It's chat room for the modern age. I'm actually thinking about setting up a BWH Comics Discord that has some patron tiers for special stuff.
That's entirely up to you.
Also fun thing. I'm playing with putting together an ARG for high level patrons.
I have no idea what an ARG is.
So an ARG is an augmented reality game.
Okay.
And the best example I talked about it a little bit last stream with the Hunt a Killer boxes.
Yeah.
That is an ARG where
Okay.
basically you're given clues to something that you can actually do, like search for websites, and you find this website they've set up for this fake company and things like that have all these clues built into it. I'm thinking about doing that with a series of letters based on my books, The Letters of the Devil, and having one a month going out to patrons that have little clues built in, and that you have to have all 12 to solve everything. And stuff. But if I do that, one thing I want to do is set up a Discord with a special channel for the people who have access to that, so they can help each other out.
There you go.
That makes sense.
No one else gets access.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. I increasingly want to gamify my social media output.
And that would keep. So would you do a new one like every year? Oh, we lost you.
So I figured out the problem with this is my headset jack comes out a tiny bit periodically. So I just need to shove it back in.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to be very experimental to see what happens. My initial thought is that it's actually going to be, they're my guinea pigs to test the next marketing thing I do before the next book.
I mean, but that's part of the risk of becoming a patron, is that they signed up to help you test the next big idea.
Yeah, and I also, there'd be like behind the scenes stuff. It wouldn't all be focused on like $5 a month gets you just these letters. And I'm like, no, I think that would be cool to have a few other things, because a lot of people sign up for mine because of cost pay and they don't care about letters. So, but I could do like, the making of this stuff, or when I do the book, I'm planning on having a couple exclusive stories that don't show up anywhere else, and that might go to those patrons.
There you go.
I have extras at the back of each of the 4 chapters for Threadbare Memories that go on Patreon and will go in the book, and that's it.
I'm also thinking a few of the clues might have required you to have read my previous books, which that's just me being sneaky.
I have done this before, where I've made a comic and I've only made it available for patrons on Patreon and people on my email newsletter. The comic that I did this for was Thoughtful Dinosaur, and then I put that on Kickstarter once all of the pages were done. I wasn't sure how successful it was going to be, since it was only for a select audience, but I went ahead with the Kickstarter anyway, and it actually exceeded its goal. Which was awesome. And there were people who pledged for the project who weren't even on my Patreon or email newsletter. And they just found it on Kickstarter, and they were like, this sounds like an interesting concept. I'll back it. So there is to be said about playing to exclusivity and then making it available for the public after its run is done.
Right. One thing I also wanted to bring up, going back to newsletters, because that is, like we said, email newsletters are one of the big ways you interact with people. I happen to notice, Angela, you sent out a link for a MailChimp thing. I know both of you have used MailChimp with different experiences. Is that something you're able to talk about, Kelsey? Or
I think I'll let Angela speak first.
I have no problems with MailChimp. I use it because I know how, and I don't know. So I use Wix for my website, and I could do an email newsletter through that, but it's a lot more awkward.
Yeah, like MailChimp does have integrations with more platforms. I will give it that. I had one big issue with MailChimp that made me stop using it. The big issue that I had with it was I went into the list of emails that were on my email newsletter, and I had the intent of going in there and selecting only the people who had not opened my emails for a number of months. And there was a little box for select all. And then I And usually when you see that select all thing, that usually only applies to the list of names that you see on page 1.
Mm-hmm.
However, the way that MailChimp is set up, when you hit select all, that means every email on the list.
Wow.
So I hit that thinking, oh, it's only going to apply to the first page. And then I hit delete. And then I realized every single email on my email newsletter was deleted.
Oh my gosh.
Never using MailChimp again. Not
Was
until
there
they
any way
fix
to get it back?
There's no recovering that. Once you delete them off of the list, it's permanent.
Wow. Yeah, that's not a great setup.
No.
You were able to get most of them back, though, right? Just because you had the list, you hand wrote it from the list that you already had,
a
right?
good chunk of them handwritten. However, before a certain point, there was a point where I had just torn them up after every convention just for like privacy's sake. But then after a point, I was like, well, I should hold on to these just in case. So I started keeping them as like physical backups. So I was able to recover half of the list. And then there were a number of people whom I just reached out to on Kickstarter campaigns, social media, Patreon, etc. And I was like, this thing happened on MailChimp. If you want to be on my email newsletter again, you will have to sign up through this new link. And I was able to get some people back on that way. That said, my email list is not the number that it was before. When the snafu happened with MailChimp, I was at over 300. Now I'm at about 146-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My list is significantly smaller than that, but what I've been doing with it is just a Google Contacts channel and just blind copy emailing.
Yeah, Google has a size limit though, a number limit.
I've heard that. I haven't hit it yet, but
yeah,
I can't remember what it is.
That could be another issue that you're having. I've never done an email list like that before, but strangely enough, Google will still mark those on occasion as spam in other people's inboxes. So it could be that you may not be getting a lot of open rates on your email list because the other person's thing is marking it as spam because it's coming from Gmail.
Does Weebly have a newsletter function like Wix does?
That is an excellent question. I don't know. Let me check.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't guess.
It's one of those things that never occurred to me. Like, I always just do it. I don't even have an email address right now through Weebly because I haven't set one up.
Oh, I wouldn't. In Wix, you can pick the email address. I don't think you have to use like a Wix email address.
Yeah. For the record, for folks who may be wondering, like, for alternatives to MailChimp, so that you can avoid my mistake. I went to MailerLite, which has a lot of the same functionality as MailChimp. They have a lower cap on the free option than MailChimp does, but at least MailerLite does not have the function of accidentally deleting every email on your email list.
Yeah.
They are better designed. But still though, MailerLite does have a free option and it allows for a lot of subscribers and emails sent out every month before you have to pay for it.
So it looks like Weebly does have a mailing list feature. I've just never used it, so I'm going to need to play with it at some point.
Yeah, give it a shot.
That might be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if they made me pay more for it, but if that's the case, I'll know.
Think the Wix includes it for. Well, I was going to say the Wix includes it for free, but I also do pay for one of my many Wix websites. So
yeah, I currently only have the one website, so I don't buy that. Everything I do is hosted through, so I don't mind paying. I think I'm paying like $7 a month.
Yeah, I'm paying something like that for the one. My one main website is I pay for, so it's just the website that you've been showing. But then I have like comics.flyingdodostudio.com because I have so many comics that I've done. I just want one website with its own unique box.
Yeah.
Ugh.
What I usually do is I have everything go through bwhcomics.com in some way, but
Yes.
then if I buy a custom URL from GoDaddy, that just relinks there. Like technically, if you want to go to Cospain, I bought the URL cospaincomic.com, but the technical location of it is actually bwhcomics.com/cospain.
Yeah, it's a domain redirect. I'm familiar with those.
Yeah, and honestly,
lots of those.
Like, if you see that on an art website, that's not them trying to scam you. That's just a really cheap way to set that up.
It is. I've done that for the Case of the Wendigo. I have it so that when you type in thecaseofthewendigo.com, it takes you to the opening page of the comic on the Charlie and Klaus site, because the actual comic itself is on charlieandcloud.com. It's just thecaseofthewendigo.com takes you to page 1.
Nice.
Another fun thing, I set up lotd-comic.com a long time ago. For and by the way, that was a terrible URL to pick, but
it's no worse than mine.
But the that would redirect to Letters of the Devil. For the last Kickstarter, and I just realized I haven't switched it back yet, it redirects to the Kickstarter now. So I can use the exact same URL to get people exactly where I want them to go.
Yep.
So
that is the really nice thing about domain redirects is you can choose where it redirects to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I gotta, for my next Kickstarter, I'm gonna set up newcomic.flyingdodostudio.com, and that I can just push wherever the newest comic is.
My favorite tool is actually tinyurl.com because it's free. And I just go to tinyurl.com, plug in the long link that it is, and then I try to figure out the best word combination that is short, indicates what it is, and is easily shareable.
Just so you're aware, Kelsey, I actually tried to help promote Neverending on Reddit, and I found out later that someone in your group was already doing that, so I probably didn't need to. But
that's okay, but I appreciate it. But
I went ahead and tried to do it.
Neverending social media campaign group is like on it.
But I tried to post the tiny URL you gave me, and a few subreddits actually said we do not accept tiny URLs. It has to be an actual redirect.
Okay.
I'm guessing they had some kind of spam problem with it or something along those lines. But just so you're aware, that sometimes does happen with tiny URL.
Okay, that's good to know.
Otherwise, honestly, way easier than some of the options.
And cheaper.
Yeah, I always. It's one of the problems with posting anything on Instagram because links don't work on Instagram. Whenever you want to, I had an automated post go up for this video with a link to the YouTube thing. No one's going to retype that thing, and it's hard to copy and paste it from there too. But what other option did I have?
Well, with Instagram, what you can do is you can do link is in the bio, and there are options for that. There's link in bio, there's Linktree. I use Linktree.
I do too.
Yeah, Linktree, super convenient for that. But there are people like the Financial Diet on Instagram who use link in bio, and what they'll do is they'll make a post, and in their post it'll be like, read our article via the link in the bio, and then you go to their profile, you click on the link that they have there, and it takes you to a variety of articles that you can click on, and it redirects to their site.
Right.
Yeah. So there are ways to circumvent the fact that Instagram doesn't want you to post direct links on your individual posts, and you can just be like, link is in the bio.
Forgot I was muted.
That's okay.
Tell Abe he's too loud.
He is. He's doing laundry.
Yeah.
Laundry day. Curse your laundry day.
I know. Well, did you hear about that coin shortage?
I heard about the coin shortage. I'm very familiar.
Yes, we have to use $1.75. No, more than that, to do our laundry. And no one would give us quarters. And we were like, we have only dirty clothes now. What are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
It's better now. We have clean clothes. This is clean, I swear.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I'm familiar with the laundry struggle. Yep. In the final months of my living in my previous address, the washing machine broke, and I could not afford to buy a new one. So I just ended up going to the laundromat, and I would just wash one giant load in one of their giant machines. Then I would pull it all out, and then I would put it into the car, and then I would use the dryer at my house.
Smart.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it saved me quarters.
Yeah, we bought a tiny little, you can get a little like washer that you can put in your tub.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got that and a little spin dryer when we lived in Vermont because it was such a hassle and gross to go to the laundromat.
Yeah.
And then we would have clothes drying all over the apartment for a couple days after laundry day.
Yep.
So
it's an ordeal. Yes.
I think I need to be filled in on this because I'm a little confused by it. Why do laundromats usually have coin machines, don't they?
They usually do, but you have to have dollar bills. There are an increasing number of machines at the laundromat that do accept credit card, though.
Okay.
And we have one in the back of our apartment. It's only a triplex. There's only three units, so there's no coin machine. You just have to have quarters.
Yeah. That is more inconvenient. That's where I was getting confused. It's like, but these machines are getting fed with coins anyway. Like, why aren't they just like cycling this?
That would be nice.
That would be nice, but I don't know how that works. Yeah. But talking about various ways to connect with people outside of Kickstarter. I mean, Kickstarter
laundromats.
Laundromats.
Yeah, put up posters in the laundromat, right? They're bored.
I am curious if you guys ever did anything like this because I've done it for both my Kickstarters, and as far as I know, it did nothing. But it was an interesting idea.
My business card in public venues like that because there's usually like a community cork board, so I'll like post up a business card on there.
Not business cards, tear sheet flyers.
Oh, I go to my local comic shops with little like half-page ads for my Kickstarter campaigns. I've done that I'm pretty sure that was why the Case of the Wendigo took off as well as it did, was because I had a little half-page flyer that I went to my local comic shop and I was like, hey, can you share these far and wide? And they were like, yeah, we could totally do that. You're a local artist. So definitely blew my goal out of the water, and I'm pretty sure that was a good contributor to that. So connect with your local comic shops if you have one in your area.
Every time I do anything, I bring a poster or something to my local comic shop. And they usually let me bring two. I bring a letter size and a big tabloid size so they can put the tabloid like up in the front window or the front door, and then the letter one on the cashier desk.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one doing that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely not.
So the version I did actually had the tear strips at the bottom. Here, I'm actually going to make it shareable.
Okay.
Application window right there.
Oh, are we doing a share screen? Oh, here we go. Add to stream. It's thinking. There it goes.
Yep. But that's what I set up. I got a bunch of them, did the fold and the cut at the bottom so they were easily tear awayable.
And
it
included a QR code too.
Yes. It's
Do the
now,
little ones work too?
Those are little QR codes too. Yeah.
But they actually work that small?
Yes. QR code can work at almost any size. Like,
that's crazy.
The more I've worked with QR codes, thanks to being able to make them in InDesign, the more I realized how brilliant a design they are. Like,
I will say this too. I found this to be true when I had Dragons, a sketchbook on Kickstarter. I made a QR code for that, and I put that QR code on my artist table at various like appearances that I did throughout that month. And there were people who were able to scan the QR code, and it took them directly to the Kickstarter page, and they were able to back the project just by using that QR code on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a like a QR code is surprisingly easy to generate. You can get a free app on your phone that will make QR codes that pretty much any modern phone can read. It's a really good idea if you want to get people directed to your site. whether or not you do the whole, like whatever you put it on, it can be a very useful thing to have.
So the
Heck
only
yeah.
reason I don't do a tear strip is because it's limited how many there can be.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
it. And it's a little extra work, and I just want it to be as seamless as possible.
I always do that thing where I put it up and then I tear one of them, just so it's like someone's already taken one. Now you can take one
Yeah,
too.
I totally get it. Do you take the one on the far left, or do you take one in the middle like a scary person?
I think I switched it up.
Ugh.
Well, no, the reason I would take it from the middle is because that makes it look more like someone actually took one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I honestly don't know that it helped me at all. Part of the problem is I don't think I set it up correctly to tell me when that's where people were coming from.
Oh, the analytics tracking.
Yeah, but like I can reasonably figure out where most of the people that backed my project came from, because a lot of them I know, or like I know how they like. One of the bigger backers I had, I looked at that name, and the first thing I did was when I saw it was call my mom, like, "Who is this?" Because I know you know.
Yeah. So funny enough, I still don't really have Google Analytics set up. Like WordPress does have the ability to track the like page and stuff like that, but for a little while, I just ran surveys through SurveyMonkey and reached out to everybody on social media and Kickstarter as like a once a year, like, how did you first find out about me? Where did you come across this thing? Where do you usually buy most of my stuff? Blah, 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 blah. And majority of the time, people bought my stuff not through Store Envy, not through conventions, although conventions was a close second. It was Kickstarter. People would just buy stuff off of me via Kickstarter, which is another reason why I like to do short campaigns and have multiple campaigns a year, is because there are people who just, not exclusively, but they just buy off of Kickstarter. That's where they get all of their stuff if they want to support an indie artist.
Yeah, when I had a good paying job as a tech writer, comics is not paying the same. I was so addicted to Kickstarter. I have backed like 100 things. I was after I quit my job. I think it was another year before I stopped getting things in the mail that I had backed, and it's the perfect thrill for me, because there's the thrill of finding it, of picking my item, watching it come to fruition, forgetting about it, and then it comes in the mail. It's perfect on every level.
Yeah, it is
so
a
addictive.
true exercise in delayed gratification, fulfilled to the highest degree.
Yeah, it's Christmas however many times a year.
I've tried to get better about backing Kickstarters because I'm trying to curb my spending a lot. But I still try to back Kickstarters because the more, having done two now, a big part of my thinking is I don't want them to back me. Like you want people to be stepping out and taking a little bit of risk sometimes and backing projects that seem interesting. I was about to say you should plug it.
Yeah, there's a Kickstarter for an anthology that I'm in that I should mention. It's The Most Costly Journey. It's like a weekend. It's a whole bunch of us. So Shashwat Mishra was in the class with Ben and me, and he's in there, and he's in the anthology that the three of us are in for a different thing. And Tilly Walden, who's well known for spinning and on a Sunbeam, she has a comic in there. It's a collection of short comics about migrant farm workers and their journey from why they came from Mexico up here. And the purpose was to publish it in Spanish so that they could share it and help engage the community and get health services out. And now they're doing this Kickstarter to fund an anthology of the English edition and then prepare for a Spanish edition of the anthology. So it's a very interesting project.
I'm looking at it right now. I did back it, by the way. That is It's at 4,900 out of 8,000 with 23 days left to go. Really good.
It's doing great.
That puts it probably just shy of 60%, and 65 is the sweet spot.
After a week, yeah.
Yep. The version I selected is actually their early special, and it looks like they may... Oh, no, reward no longer available. So you missed out on the really cool thing, but there's a lot of other cool stuff on there.
Early bird tiers and limited edition tiers.
Yes.
Come in handy.
Yeah, there's one of the levels that you can get a book plate that has one of the artists will draw on it, and I'm doing some of those.
Yep.
I don't know how they decide who draws on what, if you get to pick or not, but we'll see.
Yeah. The version I got, and I think this is incredibly cool. I think they have this option still on there. Just it's more expensive. If it's not early bird, but I think it's like $30 instead of 20. But not only do I get physical and PDF copies of the book, I actually am going to get selected Spanish language versions of it too, which I think is I'm really curious how that was done.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I know when I did mine, they would have us do it originally in English and then send them that, and then they would send us the Spanish translation and we would plop that in, which was very interesting.
I remember some point at CCS, Tilly was doing the hand lettering for the Spanish version of some project. Like I actually might have been one of hers, but they sent her the translation and she went in and hand lettered the whole thing in Spanish.
Wow.
Because Tilly.
And Tilly did a few different comics for this project. I think she was like their first artist.
Yeah, they've got actually, just to throw out a couple of the other names, like Steve Bissett is one of the people who drew for it. I noticed I knew like 2/3 of the names on here from Vermont. It was really funny. But yeah, they've got some real talent going on in this one. I like, even if I didn't directly know you guys, I would have backed this one. But I remember going through the names and was like, wait, really?
Yeah.
If I were still in Vermont, I probably would have done one. Like, they grabbed every cartoonist in Vermont.
Basically, yeah. It's a big project.
Yeah, that's cool, though. That's tinyurl.com/costly-journey.
Yeah. I suspected when I dropped that in the private chat that there would be a tiny URL shortly.
Absolutely.
Very smart.
What do you take me for?
Yeah. And hey, honestly, this is also a pretty good example of the fact that it is so interesting the different ways you can cross-promote stuff, even if you're not heavily tied into it. Like, obviously, Angela, you are one of the participants in the anthology, but...
Yeah, but I did it like 3 years ago. I have barely done anything with it since.
Yep.
They've been nice and sending us, update emails and stuff, but...
Yeah.
You know what I just realized?
Yes.
Migrant farm workers. This might be the thing that Tilly was lettering.
I think it probably was.
Ago, that might be what. That might be it. That's really funny.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, like the anecdote I told might actually be for this comic.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was.
But yeah, it's funny how other sources can very often cross promote you, especially when you have a specific project like a Kickstarter. It's so easy to to push people in that direction. Yeah. Like I mentioned last time, my friends at the podcast Playdisc, who actually I recorded an ad for them and they played it in the middle of their videos for like a month. Like that kind of stuff can be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Well, guys, we're at 2 minutes to 3. I think now would be a good time to start wrapping it up.
Sounds good. So we talked a lot about the subject we said we were going to talk about.
Yes, we did.
And laundry.
And laundry. And lots of other stuff.
Yeah, we hit all of the important topics.
It's true.
Yes, we did. But this will go up live, or not necessarily live, but it will go up archived on my channel, and people are free to leave comments afterwards. So I will be answering any questions that you have in the comments section below. Feel free to post. I'll go ahead and toss up some other links and banners so that y'all can find out more about these lovely people. Oh, it's been a fun stream as always. Thank you, Jessica. You are awesome. Yes. Hardcore fans.
Yes.
I'll always support the hardcore fans. They will support you. And also treat them like people. They're people who jive with you. So anyway, yeah.
I have a gaming friend who recently became a patron, and one of the things that's funny is, like, we always kind of like spy versus spy troll each other when we play games in this group. Like, there's so much friendly fire happening,
Nice.
and now I pretty much just let him do it, and I don't retaliate because I'm like, he's paying me.
That's one way to go about it.
Yep. Maintaining the fans.
All right. So, Angela, I will plug you first. We got this link here to your, I believe this is your portfolio site. Is that right?
Yeah, it kind of has links to everything. You can read more comics. You can see my portfolios. You can message me. Lots of things on there. All of my shops are linked from there.
Awesome. We also got the Kickstarter, tinyurl.com/costly-journey if you want to support her work there. To find Ben, it's bwhcomics.com.
That's right. And I'm BWH Comics on most social media. You'll also find me there on Patreon, YouTube. That's my YouTube channel. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also find the Letters of the Devil, which you heard me discuss, at lotd-comic.com, which shortly will not link to the Kickstarter. And you can find my comedy weeb comic Cospain over at cospaincomic.com.
Yep. And
I just want to briefly shout out Carlos's comment.
Yes, I saw that.
I really want to make a horror comic titled this now.
Your fans are made out of people.
Like, I just wrote that down, and I'm like, that's gonna be a horror comic at some point. Because
also, shout out to the Stanley Cup and the NHL for being like, shout out to our fans, and there are pictures of like steel fans in the bleachers.
Nice.
Yep. Instead of those cardboard cutouts, it's just fans. Shout out to them. I appreciate good puns. You can find out more about me through linktree/KelseyD or kelseydcrawford.com, but my Linktree has more of my social media links on there. I'll go ahead and throw this out there now. I'm a little surprised that I didn't talk about this too much. I'm actually switching from Patreon to Ko-fi shortly. I'm going to be putting Patreon on pause, and I'm going to be switching over to Ko-fi as the platform to go to if you want to support me on a monthly basis. But I have more details about that in my email newsletter, which you can sign up for on the link down below. All right, go ahead and throw out your sign-offs.
Angela, did you come up with one in the last?
I did. Keep reading and drinking tea.
That's a good one. I like that. Rock on, guys, and never stop drawing.
Thank you so much for watching. You are awesome.